Hey, everybody, it's me, Sarah, your Christian forgiveness coach. You're listening to Forgive Everyone for Everything Every Day, Right Away. This is episode number 65, and we're going to talk about forgiveness and why it's so hard to let go sometimes, letting go in a relationship that's ended. So, whether you're the one who left, or maybe you're thinking about leaving, or you're the one who was left, letting go can be super, super challenging. So, relationships are where we grow. They're where we are the most challenged. Relationships are the thing that challenges us the most in life, brings up all our stuff. It brings up our childhood trauma, all our triggers, our pain points, all of the thoughts that we have about ourselves and our worth, all the judgments, everything. So every time this happens in a relationship, it's really an opportunity for growth. And that growth is really, really uncomfortable. So, a lot of times, and it makes sense that we would want to run away from that. We would want to get away from that discomfort and not work through those growing pains. And sometimes that's absolutely the right thing to do, depending on the relationship. Of course, if it's abusive, I would never tell you to stay in an abusive relationship to try to grow yourself. The truth is, I don't know what's best for you or anyone, but most of the time in relationships, it boils down to miscommunications, misunderstandings. And when we run from those things, we sometimes we don't give ourselves the opportunity to grow and to understand our past and what's actually triggering us, like why we're so uncomfortable. And if we can face those things in a relationship, we can work through them and move past them. So we often will hide from these things by not being in relationships, or leaving a relationship when we get uncomfortable because it's uncomfortable and we don't know sometimes what to do with that. But personally, I think that staying in a relationship and working through that discomfort, whether you decide to stay together or not, is the best place to do that, because running away from it isn't going to make it go away. Like, it will show up again in future relationships. So we can jump from relationship to relationship to relationship, or we can stay in the one that's challenging us and do that work. Anybody can fall in love. Choosing to stay and do the work and be challenged and grow, that is one of the hardest things, but also I think one of the most rewarding in the end, if you want to. So, it takes a lot of commitment, a lot of sacrifice, and a lot of support. I think back on my most recent relationship, and the best time in that relationship was when we were committed to doing the daily work. We were getting the support we needed. But as soon as we stopped doing those things and we lost that commitment, it went downhill fast. And it's so much easier to give up than to commit again. But unless you want to settle, and we're going to talk about that, like, that's okay if you choose to do that, just do it consciously. But that commitment has to be a daily choice. And it takes two people who actually want to do it and hold one another accountable. So again, relationships are work. I don't care who you are. I don't care how well you get along, how much you have in common, how long you've been together. It takes work. And not everyone understands this. Not everyone wants to do that work. A lot of people either give up or they settle. And some think they want to do the work, but then when they actually find out what the work is, they're like, nope, I'm out. I don't want to do that. And that's okay. I've certainly been in all of those situations. I've had relationships where I wanted to do the work, but the other person didn't. So I actually settled. I've been in relationships where I didn't want to do the work, so I left. I've been in relationships where I did don't want to do the work and the other person didn't, and they decided to leave. And I've also been in relationships where I wanted to do the work, they didn't, and I decided to leave. So as a Christian, some of you might be surprised when I say that I don't think any of these options are better than the other. Like, none are right or wrong. The truth is, everyone gets to decide for themselves when it comes to relationships. So, let's talk about each of these options because I don't think any one option is necessarily better than the other. But I do think that we could stand to go about them much more consciously. So here's what I mean by that. How honest are you with yourself really about the work you are willing to put into a relationship? Some of us are going around saying, like, we want to be married, we want to be committed, but we don't actually want to put in the actual work it takes. So now, again, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with not wanting to put in the work. But are you being honest with yourself and other people about that? Because I think you should be honest with yourself and others, because I don't think it's nice to marry someone who does want to do the work and thinks you do too. You make them think you want to do it too, but you really don't. Just be honest. I mean, find someone you're compatible with in that way. Find someone who wants to put in the same effort or non effort as you, or be honest about it. Find someone who's okay with that. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have decided to settle, maybe you wanted to work on something and your partner didn't, but you've decided that you don't want to leave, settling doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's only bad if you decide to do it and then you go on and complain about it and like punish your partner for it. I settled in a marriage for 14 years and I was perfectly fine doing so. I made that choice very consciously for reasons that I liked until one day I didn't like those reasons anymore. And by that time, I also didn't want to do the work on it. So, then there's times when we do want to do the work and they don't, but we don't want to settle. And this can be really, really painful because we are faced with leaving someone that we actually love and we wish things would work out. And we have to choose ourselves in that scenario. And that's can be really difficult and painful. And it takes a lot of courage. And then sometimes like we're in it, we're working on it, we're trying our hearts out, and the other person decides they don't want to and they leave. And sometimes that can be the most painful of all. And forgiveness in these situations becomes really challenging for two reasons. We're either making them wrong for their choice, or we're making their choices mean something about us. Okay. And this is normal. Okay. We're made for connection. We're made for relationships. So it's normal that we would think like, oh, if somebody leaves us, then it's about me. I've done something wrong. But, you know, most of us, we have some sort of childhood experience, maybe of rejection or abandonment, where we believed we weren't good enough. And then that will come out in our adult relationships when someone chooses not to be with us. We could make that mean that we weren't enough. We could make it mean we weren't worth doing the work for. But the truth is, we are enough. We are worth it. Someone else's choice for what they want to do with their life has nothing to do with us or our value or worth. And we must understand this, and we must teach ourselves to let go of anyone who doesn't want to be in our lives. We must understand that when someone chooses to leave our life, that is not about us, that is about them. God knows our value and our worth, and we must know it too. When we know it, when we truly know it, we can allow anyone to walk away from us with acceptance. And think of it this way, like, do you even want to have someone in your life that doesn't want to be there? Of course not. Letting go gets a lot easier when you think of it this way. It doesn't mean that you won't grieve. It doesn't mean it won't be painful. I mean, you're grieving a loss. You're grieving a life you thought that you would have with this person. But it doesn't mean that you've lost a life with a person that you thought that you would have. So I thought I would have, a particular person through thick and thin, someone who was willing to go through every challenge with me, every obstacle that came our way, work through anything that life threw at us. I was just wrong about who that person was. It doesn't mean that I can't have that kind of relationship if that's what I truly desire. And same for you. God knows the desires of our hearts. We are made for connection and relationship. The quality of our relationships affects the quality of our life. And it all starts with knowing our value, being honest with what you truly want and what you're willing to do or not do to have it, and allowing other people to be who they are and make their own choices without making them wrong for it. When those things happen, you will only allow people in your life that match up with that. And there won't be any room for unforgiveness. All right, until next time. Bye.